The fabulous Ellie Swift. Welcome to her Empire Builder show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really wish we were in person right now, but
I
this feels like
know.
just almost as good.
That was my favorite thing about last year was actually getting to
Mm.
see you in person because when I talk about you to other people, I describe you as human sunshine. And before we hit record, you were like talking about Sunny, your daughter, who I find it so apt that you named her Sunny because I'm like, you're human sunshine. And you're like, she's human sunshine because she takes after her mama.
Oh, thank you, my darling friend. I know you've told me that before, and it's so kind of you. It's so nice. It actually makes me teary. It's really, isn't it
Yeah.
nice? It's very nice to have other girlfriends in any industry where you know that they're saying beautiful things about you. So thank you.
Yes. Well, isn't that the thing that, I
Yeah.
was talking to someone about this the other day and going, so many of the opportunities that I've got in business have been by people putting my name forward for things. And it's so important to cultivate our networks and friendships. And yeah, I'm very lucky that I have really good circle of people in our business world. And I know you've cultivated that as well.
It's true. We had a mastermind call the other day, and one of my clients was talking about another woman and how she does really great Instagram story strategy. She was like, I don't know this woman, but this is her handle. Go and watch how she does X, Y, and Z thing really well. And I said to this client, I was like, I just I like to think that something great is happening to this woman right now because she's just got all these people going to follow her. She's going to have no idea where
Yeah,
it
she'd be there going, what happened today?
really, but there was a group of women on a mastermind call singing her praises.
Yeah.
And that's how good business happens,
Mhm.
like so
Yeah.
yeah, I love that so much. And I
Yeah.
agree, if you just, really gave reverence to peers and other people in your industry, like that in itself becomes such an effective strategy and you're not
Yeah.
even being strategic.
Yes, totally. Okay, so you've got little Sonny, and I do love, I do love talking to people that have little kids because my kids are giant kids. I have made these big Adonis men, which I do find really helpful because so many women with young children are kind of going, how do I deal with the struggle of wanting to do both, being ambitious, still wanting to set the world on fire, but also not wanting to leave my baby's side at all. And so I wanted to touch on that just a little bit for all of the people that are building online businesses that have the young children. If we rewound to the version of you before motherhood and compared her to who you are today, what is the biggest internal shift that's happened since Sunny arrived?
I would say that everything has just become more intentional for me.
Mm,
So, what I mean by that is that, you know, I think that a lot of my fears that I had before Sunny were that I was going to have her and I was going to be less ambitious. And that did not happen. In fact, what did happen is I actually became more ambitious, but
mm,
I had less time and I had to be far more intentional about how I spent that time. So, what shifted was I went from being like, I can build and scale this business and I can do it in any which way because my business is the center point of my life,
mhm.
to going, well, Sunny is now everything to me. There are a lot of things I'm not going to trade off because I want to prioritize time with her above everything. But also, how do I do that and still continue to grow and scale and have all these ambitions in my business? So I just had to get so intentional about how I did everything. And so, really practically speaking, what that looks like is like a lot of planning. And I know I'm speaking to a fellow planner, but like if you saw
This
my
is my love language.
if you saw my life, there
Mm,
is nothing accidental about what I'm doing in my life. I can tell you my values, I can tell you my order of priorities, and my time is set up to meet each of those things. I know exactly how much time I want to be able to spend with Sunny, and I know what's a
mm,
non-negotiable. And I also know what I want to do in my business and how I'm making that happen. And the tension that I feel in this season of my life is that it's like a constant um, mass equation that I'm having to solve
mhm.
on any given day of the week. So I'm constantly having to trade off different things to be
Yeah,
able to do.
yeah,
And I live in that dance. I know that balance doesn't exist. And so I'm not trying to create balance. I just don't
yeah.
think it's possible.
Yeah.
Actually, what I find is that for me and for anyone I see who's also doing this is you have to get really okay with just living in the dance and
Yes.
knowing that you're constantly going to be in flux. A little bit more mumming, a little bit more business. Oh, business thinks more of me. Okay, it's just not going to get that today. I have to be okay with a few balls dropping here.
Yeah.
My daughter requires me more. Like being okay with being in that. And that I think is some of the deepest work, is knowing that you are going to be in flux constantly, having to be really intentional about where you devote your time, how you devote your time, knowing that you're never going to be doing it
Mm.
all of the time. And that is just life and that is okay.
100%. And I do think there's a couple things that you said that I love. I do think that there's no one as productive as a mum with young children running a business.
Truly.
Like it's like next level. You treat the time so preciously. But also I love that you are so open about being intentional, because I do think that there's this rhetoric sometimes of like, it all just flows to me and it all happens so easily. And then I do find a lot of women will beat themselves up going, gosh, it's harder for me than it is for everybody else because everyone's making it look so easy. And I think you and I both have that in common, in that we are very intentional about the life that we lead and very planned for that and what we're available for and what we're not available for, and boundaried. And it doesn't happen by accident. It is there. And I know when I had young kids, like there were different things, you just simply can't do everything. We can eventually, but in that season, it's a very tight season. So was there a moment in your business where you realized like, I can't run my business the same way anymore? Like something practical that you were like, you know what? I can't do this way. And did you resist it? Did you redesign it? Like what did you have to change?
My journey was a teeny bit different in that because I spent 3 years in preconception, a
Mm.
lot of the changes happened in that time. So
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that I did was I shut down one of my masterminds and went all in on, well, it was two then, it's one now, but I previously had three. So and they were just different tiers. So I had Swift Mind, what is now the Scalable Freedom Mastermind, and my Swift Inner Circle. And there was a period of time where I was like, energetically, I'm holding a lot of people. I want to condense this down to just the two masterminds. That was a knowing of, I'm just not going to be able to take this with me into the next
Mm.
season. So that was, I think I was like halfway through my IVF journey when I did
Yeah.
that. And then the other thing that I've actually found has been like realizing that there are so many things that I just can't control and therefore
Mm.
they're not a problem. And so, like, again, practically, I can do things within the time that I have because I'm clear on what I can and what I can't do. But
Yeah.
what I don't have time to do is stew on shit that I can't
Yeah.
control.
Yeah.
No. And we were talking about this a little bit offline before,
Yeah.
like really recognizing when stuff is going to come up in business all the
Mm.
time. And I don't have the energetic capacity to move through and process those things in the way that I used to because my nervous system is predominantly devoted to my little girl.
Yeah.
So it's more been the unseen stuff that I've had to condense and work through and go, I just don't like that, just can't be a problem for me. And
Yes.
so it makes me more discerning. It makes me like a little bit tougher.
Hmm.
I think this is the ultimate combination of mums in business. Like you are more heart open than you've ever been. You're more compassionate. You're more empathic. All those traits that we know now the data says makes us better leaders. And
Yeah.
also, I'm a little bit harder in the ways that I need to be, which also makes me a more effective business owner. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't change that for anything. I think it just
Yeah.
makes me more effective, more powerful. And I see that in the mirror that I am to my clients as well.
Mm-hmm. Because your business, it didn't contract when you had Sunny. Like your revenue, you've continued to grow, you've continued to thrive, you've continued to evolve going throughout. So there is a lot of that stuff that you go, what you were doing before, you weren't, I won't say wasting time on things before because
I
you weren't
was,
wasting
I'll say
time.
it. I'll say it though. I
But
was.
yeah, because now it's like business has continued to grow, and I think sometimes like the fear of a lot of women that I talk to that are considering or going into motherhood is that my business will contract when that happens. And I do think that no, there's just a lot of things that you got to let go of that you just can't care about anymore.
Can I add to that? Because something that we haven't spoken to here, which I think is such a key part of this, is
Mm.
that I was always building this business for this season.
Yeah.
So, part of the reason why I'm so obsessed with the mastermind business model, and I know you are too, is
Yeah.
that it enables you to make amazing money, create amazing impact, but also move through the different seasons of your life as a mother and as a woman. And
Yeah.
so when I was building my business coming out of corporate, I did not want to create for myself the life that I had in corporate, which was, I was in a head of strategy role that was very inflexible. I was chained to my desk. I was in meetings
I
all
have
day.
no idea how any full-time employed woman manages a family at the same time. Like,
Completely agree.
no idea.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
And look, I did actually recreate that for the first couple of years when I worked with one-to-one clients. And I kind of knew what I was doing because I knew that there was an element of I've got to go deep with clients to actually work out what my IP is, what my framework is, the problems that I'm solving. And then from there, I can work more in a one-to-many way. And I think ultimately, the power of hindsight, I'm like, that served me, but also it was never going to be sustainable for me. Like the model that I ultimately wanted to build was one that I could build into motherhood. And so I
Mm.
also think that, we can be short-sighted as humans building businesses. So often we're like, how do I make X amount of money next month and the month after? When the
Mm.
questions we actually need to ask are, what do I want from my life 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line? And am I building a business now that actually aligns with that future?
I love that.
You're
What
so good.
is What is your definition of success? When you talk about because we did before we hit record, we were joking a little bit about the changing perceptions of women like killing it online. And I was like, I was part of something once that I was part of a mastermind in the US, and three people there had rented out a private jet for photo shoots to like do their brand shoot of here I am on my private, but the thing didn't take off from the ground. And I just thought it was the most stupid, ridiculous thing that I'd ever seen. And my thing is, for a lot of women that I talk to, that's actually not the definition of success anyway. I mean, I would rather business class tickets for me and my family and go for a month. Like
Yep.
that's what I'm going for. But what is your definition of success? What does that look like for you?
It's a life where I get to live out my values,
Yeah.
over a long period of time. And for me, that is family first and foremost. It
Mhm.
is living out an abundant life because I have, grown up with someone who doesn't have a lot of money, and I've built, a certain amount of wealth within my life and within my family. And I love the choice and freedom that that brings for me and for us. And again, I know I'm talking to someone who, also really knows that.
Mm.
And it's also being able to be doing work where I can grow and create change and create impact. I built this business because I had a clear mission. Like I'm very mission driven in the way that I work. I'm always trying to think about doing better and being better and creating more impact. And I don't associate impact with high volume. I associate it with depth and the actual, lasting change of when you work with an individual and you see they earn more money and it goes into their communities and it like those ripple effects and how big that is. It's living a life where I can live out those values.
Mm.
Practically speaking, it's a life where when Sunny goes to school, her and her future sibling, I'm going to be able to do school pickup and school drop off. It's a world where whatever my children need from me, I'm going to be able to be there for them. It's a world where I do work that I genuinely enjoy and am excited by every day. And I'm ultimately living this life that just fulfills my soul,
Mm.
that is success for me. And it's very 360. So it's ultimately why I created the term scalable freedom, because I think about freedom as well, if you are building an incredible business, you have this opportunity to create a lifestyle business where you scale it to create freedom as you go. And
Yeah.
we've never really lived in a time where we get to do that. We know businesses as you either work your butt off for 60 years and then you retire, or if you're smart, you build something where you get a really incredible exit. But for the first time ever, we're able to build these lifestyle businesses where if we're really intentional about how we scale, we can create freedom alongside it. And like that's the life I want to live.
It is such a like incredible business model. And I'll be honest, when I first saw it, like we came into online about the same time in 2016.
Yeah.
And at the time, all the big ones were Marie Forleo, James Wedmore, Amy Porterfield, pretty much still the big ones now. But they were all the rage. And I had been starting to see their things at the time. I was just about to sell my bricks and mortar, like traditional business that I had going. And I was doing some business coaching. And so I was starting to get pushed a lot of their stuff. And I had seen it and like, not ashamed to say, I was like, bullshit. Like it can't work like that. That's not a real thing. And then when I did my first launch, and I made 11 grand in the first week, which for some people is impressive, for some people it's not much at all. But it was the first thing that I'd ever done that was like not dependent on time and so leveraged and so scalable and could impact and help so many people without me having to one-on-one handhold in that. And it was such a revelation. And I think the last 10 years, though, we have seen a lot of changes. I still think from a business model point of view, it is unrivaled. Like, in what other world can we work the way we work, do work that sometimes I'm like we've got a retreat in Fiji in June, and I'm like, we call it work. Like, that's just the funniest, best thing ever. But a lot has changed. So, from your perspective, what parts of the online course industry have you seen change the most, and what do you think isn't working anymore?
So to answer this question, I feel like I just need to give my overall view on the coaching online
Yeah,
industry.
go
So
for it.
the way I think about this is that the coaching industry is a relatively new industry, right? It's really started in like the 80s and 90s, really new. And so when we look at history and we look at patterns, we ultimately see these new industries where they'll have like a gold rush period and then it kind of stabilizes. So
Mm.
we saw the coaching industry come in, the education industry get really big in the 90s, and then the internet. Sounds so ridiculous to say it in that way, but the internet then
Do
get
you
really.
know, like on that note, so I'm doing a keynote speech next month with children, like about balancing children and business, which I've never spoken publicly about before. And so I went to get like baby photos of when I ran a business with a baby strapped to my chest. And Ellie, there weren't digital cameras until my son was 9 months old. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so old.
We've truly
It
just lived
hasn't
all
been
the
around that long.
We've just lived all the seasons. It's wild.
Yes.
Like, and we don't think about this, but so coaching industry, internet, like new industry, new industry. And so, you come into like 2010 to 2020, and we had this absolute gold rush of a time where the education industry and the online industry were both new. And so what that meant was that you could enter this space and do things half well and make a lot of
Yeah.
money, like you just said.
Yeah.
And so, what happens when that occurs? People rush in. The barrier to entry is so low in the coaching industry. We're not a regulated industry. So, people rush in, they rush in, they rush in. And then, of course, what happens to, customer sentiment? People start going, oh, I don't know if this is worth that amount. I don't know if the value exchange is actually there, because in amidst people that are doing a fantastic job of actually delivering on their product, you've also got the people
Mm.
who aren't. And so if we fast forward to now, what I think when we look at the post-COVID time in particular within the coaching, online mentoring spaces, we're seeing a lot of people feeling a little bit like jarred and you
Mm.
know cynical about what they're purchasing because maybe they were burnt during that time, or maybe they've seen a lot of people who aren't actually good at what they do, which is very real. And so
Yeah.
the reason why I feel like it's important to share that is because what I see is just the practical layer of that cycle, which is that, we went through a period where we would really purchase anything and everything. And now we're being far more discerning. We're in a market where there is a lot of choice because there are a lot more people in the industry. And what that requires of us is to actually be really great at delivering on our product, actually be really great at
Mm.
running a business, aka selling and marketing. And where I feel really excited by
All
that
good
is that
things.
all good things. The women
Mm,
in your community and my community, they're the ones who are going to thrive because they're actually really great at what they do and they're willing to double down on what it actually takes to run a business. I think that in the couple of years to come, we're going to see a lot of weeding out of people who are just not good at what they do or who built businesses based off other people's IP. And I think in 2026 in particular, especially when it comes to masterminds, we're going to be so discerning about purchasing from somebody where we can see that their IP is a living, breathing embodiment of them.
mm,
So, when I look at your business and your mastermind, you have such a clear story pathway. What you teach is your lived experience. You've got runs on the board. There's a lot of people out there who aren't running masterminds in that way. I think those masterminds are going to die out. The people who leverage their expertise really clearly, they're the ones that are going to win.
yeah. Or the other day, I was talking to someone who was saying, a few years ago, people were happy to pay 20, 30K a year for these high-end masterminds with people that were kind of insta famous and they didn't really have all the knowledge base, or they wouldn't, they're not available for any questions or personal contact, where it's like now people are being more discerning and going, actually, if you don't have time for me, I'm not going to pay you, and the expectation of delivery, I think, is higher.
I completely agree with that. I
Yeah.
completely agree with that. I think that so the framework I teach inside the mastermind model is the 5 C's, like knowing that when you're setting up a mastermind, you want to be looking at your call structure, your coaching between call structure, your community, your curriculum, and your container criteria. And as you just
Love that.
said, a lot of those masterminds, they didn't have any of those, like
Mm,
literally not a single one. And so now we're just having to be more specific about delivery and actual setup of the mastermind, as well as how we're selling it and making sure that those two things are really congruent. And when we do that well, we get really amazing retention. That's when we can create a mastermind that snowballs to being the multi-six, seven-figure dollar product.
yeah.
Seven-figure dollar,
And you did
seven-figure
say,
product.
right? That's what we want. That's what we want. Even though it is rare, like I will tell people
Mm.
that as well. I was very surprised when I started Her Empire Builder. I very publicly said my goal. So we started in 2020. My goal was by 2024 to have 100 women making $1 million a year. And I was like, this is going to be on. Like, let's go. We did seven by 2024, which I'm still proud of. In Kajabi, there are 17 women that are making, not 17 women, 17 people that are making $1 million a year through Kajabi. So it's lower than what we expect. What do you think it is that stops more people from reaching that seven-figure mark that we hear talked about in the online industry so much?
I think it would be so remiss of me to try and condense it into one thing because I don't believe
Yeah.
that it is one thing. If
Mhm.
I were to identify a couple of things, I would say the first is mindset, belief, identity. Like
Mm,
you've got to truly anchor
mm,
into and believe and embody that you are going to be the seven-figure business owner. And so, I really believe that you cannot build a business higher than the level than you are willing to play at. And so I think that
mm.
we're in a time where we don't have enough examples of that. And so there's not enough of that pattern recognition yet for people to actually believe and embody that they can be that person. I know for
Yeah, I
myself,
like
I'm
that.
sure for you too, it takes a lot to decide that you're
Yeah.
going to do that because you're breaking lineage, you're,
Hmm.
doing things that most people aren't. Like that is huge.
Yeah. The
The second,
audacity to rise.
the audacity to be that bitch, right? Like
Mm.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
and then the second piece is strategy. When I work with my clients, I'm sure you do too. We have to start by going, well, what actually is the business model to seven figures? And a lot of the time, we don't know what that is and what that looks like. I remember spending multiple years being like, I can't see it yet. I had to be able to unlock what seven figures actually looked like on paper for
Yeah.
my business to be able to chase that. And then the third is the marketing. Like to be a seven figure mastermind business owner, you've got to embody the personal brand. You've got to go after it. You've got to be consistent. You've got to do that on repeat. So you've really got
Mm.
to lock down those three things and know that it's just ever evolving. What's required from you from a mindset perspective, a strategy perspective,
Yeah.
a marketing perspective, it's going to shift and change. And you've just got to be so I think, resilient and trust yourself and believe in yourself so much to constantly want to move through those levels. Like, it's not for the
Yeah.
faint-hearted, but the rewards are so great if you're willing to commit to it. I don't know about you, but sometimes I look back and I'm like, where did I have the audacity to think that or do that or be that? But you've just got to keep coming back to that fire and commit to it
Yeah.
again and again.
And I love that you said like the constant evolving, that constant evolution. I think that is so important because, we always think, I know I did at the start of my business, like once I get here, I'll be fine. Like it'll be smooth sailing from there. But it's like that commitment to that constant experimenting and continuous improvement because it's all ever growing. So you are known, I think you've owned the space so well to position yourself as like the mastermind queen. Like you are known for that, running those deep, those high touch rooms. Who is not suited to running a mastermind, even if they're really successful in their field?
Someone who doesn't care about people. Like, that's, the first thing that comes to my mind. If you don't care about facilitating transformation
Mm,
in others, don't do it.
yeah.
You've got to genuinely want to facilitate transformation in others, which means that you've got to be willing to be in relationship with other people. You've got to be willing to hold space individually and collectively. You've got to be, willing to be someone who can take feedback. There is a lot that you can't control when you're a mastermind leader, right? You're constantly in relationship with others. And if you don't want to do that, if you want to really introvert hard in your business and never create community, then a mastermind's
Mm,
not for you. And I will caveat that with, you and I run very different businesses, and yet we both
mm,
run like mastermind businesses. So, for
yeah.
example, I see your business as such an extroverted mastermind business. You run big conferences, you hold a lot of external
Even
space.
though I'm so introverted.
Well, it's so true. And I know this about you, but I also know you do that so well. Some of
I
those,
love the community aspect.
yes. See,
Yeah.
I love what comes from like quieter rooms where things are
Mm,
whispered between one another in ways that don't happen elsewhere. And a lot of that occurs online. I also like smaller community spaces, like smaller workshops or smaller retreats. And so, what I'm talking about there is not like you have to have the big, loud conferences,
yeah.
that you have to have the smaller rooms. The cool thing about masterminds is you really get to, you can have a 10-person experience, a 50-person, a 500-person experience. You
Well,
can
our 10-person group that I ran last year, like I loved that. I'd never had a small group like that. And I was like, it's just such a different vibe.
totally, totally. And I
Yeah.
think that people either associate masterminds as like small 10-person experiences or
Mm,
500-person experiences. I find that there's not a lot of like nuance between how people see them. And it's
mm,
that reminder that a mastermind really gets to be that smaller, deeper space
what you
or
want
that
to create.
space, but you've got to
Yeah.
want to really care about transformation of people.
What is the biggest mistake that you see people making when they go to launch their mastermind? Or do some people launch it too early? Like, what are the red flags?
Biggest mistake by and large is that people are thinking about launching a mastermind to fulfill something in their business for the short term rather than thinking
Mm,
about the potential of the long term. So, what I mean by that is they'll go, I'm going to launch a mastermind for 10 people. I'm going to curate it to be the most incredible space for these 10 people, and it's going to generate me, 150K in my business this year. And oh my goodness, I'm going to hit all my goals. But what can often happen is that you curate a space for 10 people. You kind of in the back of your mind know that you'd love to scale it to 100 people, but you've built out this space that you can't scale to 100 people because you've got like calls
mm,
every second week, one-to-one with these humans. And
oof.
so ultimately, you're building something that's going to serve and support you now, but it's not going to serve and support you in the long term. Whereas all you got to do is
Mm,
some really basic maths to just walk yourself through, what do I actually want this to look like? Know that you can absolutely and should start smaller. Not should, but you get to start smaller. You only need 2 people to create a mastermind and you get to build it. But if you're thinking about your end goal, then you're going to create a better mastermind experience that's going to
mm,
sustain you for the long term and actually be the
love
mastermind
that.
that is the multi 6 or 7-figure business model.
Yes. I love that. I would 100% agree in that a lot of people don't start as they mean to continue. Like, don't imagine if you're successful, like if everything turns out great, what's that day to day going to look like? I see so many people at the beginning bloat their offers to get people in, but then you can't take anything away. You end up
Absolutely.
running yourself ragged. Yes. So I think what is difficult for a lot of people in running masterminds is the space that we hold for other people. And there is a lot of power in holding space for other people. How do you personally resource yourself so that, you're not leaking out all that energy and you're not carrying that with you home and taking that all on while still being there to support everyone? I know one of my favorite Oprah quotes was big open heart, huge fucking fence. And that is what I think of when I think of, of this. But how do you deal with holding space for so many people in, the area that you're in and the area that I'm in with people building business, which is so vulnerable and people having to really unravel so much of themselves personally? How do you deal with that?
I would say that this is probably one of the biggest personal journeys that I've had to go on running this type of business. So I just want to preface it with,
Mm.
first of all, that I am not perfect around this. And it's been an area that I've had to lean into so much. It's also an area that I talk about so much inside the mastermind model for that reason, because no one has those conversations, but yet they're the thing that people feel most. So
Mm.
to say that first of all, like to your point, if you're listening to this and you run a mastermind and you feel that way, it's really common that people running masterminds have to consider their like energy protection and what that looks like for them. It's interesting you said that Oprah quote, because I think about the Brene Brown one, which is really similar with the like soft front, hard back. Like I think about that all the time. You've got to be open and compassionate, but you also need to be really boundaried and clear. So
Yeah.
coming back to the
Open
five.
heart, sign of steel, I think she said. Did she say that? Or someone else say
Mm,
that? There must be many similar
that,
ones that are all giving us this
right.
wisdom.
And it is such wisdom, especially for us as women. I
Mm.
think so much of our power is in our openness, and we don't want to contract that.
Yeah.
So I mentioned those 5 C's before. That container criteria part of the framework is really important, because I think that energy management starts with your boundaries and your container and setting it up so that you can really
Mm.
support yourself energetically and not have those leaks. So there's a real strategic part of it for me when I'm creating and running a mastermind, is being really clear on what the boundaries are and aren't. Now, outside of that, of course, again, coming back to you're working with humans, you're working in
Mm.
relationship, you can never control the energy of others. How do you navigate that? I'm really big on like, I'm going to show up and give my whole heart, and I'm going to shut my door at the end of the day and devote myself
Mm.
to myself and my family. And so a lot of it is like really simple practices, like closing a group call, and like I exhale 3 times. I do it religiously. I've done it for years. Like I exhale 3 times and I say, I give back any energy that's not mine. I give back any energy that's not mine,
Mm.
because I know that I'll just like sit with some of that otherwise, and it'll
Mhm.
just pour into the rest of my day. So even just having the intention and like the mindfulness around knowing that when you're holding space like that, there's going to be so much energy that is not yours that you need to give back. And just knowing what is yours versus what is theirs, having it set up so you've got boundaries, and then just being so intentional about continuing to give it back.
I 100% agree with all of that because it
Mm,
is the hardest thing that I think. Like my simple ones at the moment is I do the breathing at the end, but then the sauna. And before I had the sauna, I used to have the shower where you just wash
yes.
everything away and do that. And even just app blocking so that I don't get Facebook group notifications, I don't get Voxer notifications, like just blocking it out because even when you see it, and that's the problem with running online business. I think that it can be on 24/7 if you let it. And so you have to have those boundaries there to let your energy fill back up so you can then pour it into other people as well.
It's one of the great things about having small children and having family and having life outside of it, is that you're so much better when you have those boundaries and you switch the things off and you go do your other things. You then get to actually give, like right now, the state of the world, I'm constantly playing with like, how informed do I need to
Mm,
be versus how much do I need to protect my
yeah.
energy? That's a dance that I'm constantly like back and
Uh-huh.
forth in between. But it's that same thing. You've just got to have your boundaries to know that you can
Yeah.
live in the way you want to.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, I have three rapid questions to finish you on.
Bloody
All
hate
right, we
rapid.
ready?
Yeah.
I know. And always I'm like, I bet you each one, like you could do like a full 10, 15-minute answer on each of
Yeah.
them. Okay,
So
one belief about business that you've outgrown.
that it's just about me as a solopreneur.
One metric that you no longer worship.
Views.
Yes. Isn't that like all the vanity metrics that we used to care so much about? It's like it doesn't matter. Although, mind you, like caveat, but isn't it harder now on social media that nobody's commenting and engaging as much as they used to? PSA to everyone, when you see someone putting themselves out there, give them an article.
Yeah, it's
Pop it
true.
on there. Or do a sister a solid. And final one thing that you will never sacrifice again.
Sacrifice again. Myself.
I love that. Yeah, love that.
Never going to
Ellie,
be a
you
customer.
are amazing.
Oh, thank you, honey.
You're amazing. You're awesome. We've got all the links of where to find you. I do think if anyone's wanting to pull together a mastermind, I know that I was talking to one of my members the other day and she's like, I'm using Ellie's mastermind method to be able to go through and craft everything. I'm like, so good. You're so, I think one thing that stands out about your work is you do care so deeply. You do it so professionally, so good. Like you give a shit, many of them. And I think that comes across in
Detriment.
everything. Yeah, very, very high quality as well as being such a beautiful space. So thank you for everything that you bring to everyone. You're incredible.
Thank you, my friend. That means the world. And likewise in all the ways.